The moment I saw the trailers for Weapons, I knew that I had to go watch this thing in theaters as soon as possible. It hooks you in right away and does not reveal the answer, so I knew I had to go watch it in theaters. And did it deliver? Let's talk about it. And of course, like the trailers promised, the suspension and mystery is a huge part of this movie, so it needed to deliver on that note. And the movie absolutely did. The entire movie keeps you on suspense the entire time, while you're waiting for this question to be answered on. What happened? Why did all these kids randomly get up at 2:17 and run outside? And throughout the entire movie, it's just a big mystery, while all these different events are playing out, and you're slowly piecing together what actually happened through all these different perspectives. And because you're seeing all these different sides, you're able to slowly piece together what is happening in the story and slowly learn what happened to these kids. The movie keeps you on your toes the entire time and in suspense while you're just watching this mystery play out and asking the question, what happened to these kids? Now, although there's not too many horror moments, I am an absolute horror guy, so the horror moments that we did get in this movie, they are pretty good horror moments. The jump scares, sometimes the jump scares can be like a cheap way to make someone jump. These ones, they were pretty good jump scares. It does have that loud music, but it had that loud music along with like the urge and suspense. And when it actually came to the jump scare, it's pretty creepy of what's jumping out at you and making you jump. Now, I haven't seen Barbarian, but I heard that one's actually a more horror jump scare movie. So if I love the horror elements in here, I will most certainly probably love the horror elements in something like Barbarian. And as I mentioned before, the story is told in different perspectives. And I thought that was a really creative way at telling the story, because you're not just watching one character try to solve this case. Instead, you're watching multiple different perspectives on what happened throughout this entire journey and what is exactly happening. It's told through these different eyes of one character learns this, then someone else learns that, and you as the audience is piecing it all together and actually figuring out the story. I found that a really creative way to tell this story and was a huge standout walking out of this movie because it was just such a creative way to tell it. Now, I can say some feel pointless and some are extremely important, but they all come together in the end and makes them all feel important. It's just while watching it, one doesn't, one does. The story works as well as it does because it actually brought all these different stories together by the end. If it didn't do that and just told it in one big story, the movie would not have worked the same way that it did. It's because it split it up into different perspectives, the movie had that payoff that it did. And you actually care for the characters because you saw everyone's perspective in things. As mentioned, if you just focus on one character, you only care about that character. But since we split it up between different people, we now care for each individual person. It works because it all comes together by the end. And when the movie's not a mystery or jump scare stuff, it's a horror dark comedy. And there's a few good comedy moments in here that I found myself laughing. One specifically at the end, where, yeah, it was just played for laughs. It was probably the hardest my theater even laughed at this movie. It's weird if a movie that keeps you on your toes the entire time you're guessing the mystery and has a few good jump scares can have a fun comedy moment. For the most part, I got what I wanted with this movie. The horror, the mystery, the suspense, and a few other moments I was surprised with by the end. But it's not perfect. But real quick, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1K by the end of the year, consider subscribing. Let's continue. First off, I feel the story would have worked better if it was a show. Just because it's structured in the way of we see this character's perspective and then this character's perspective, I feel like that would have worked better if each perspective was an episode of a show while we slowly built out each character even more. So you have more of that payoff by the end of the episode and the end of the show. In my eyes, this would have worked better as a show just because of that concept. You could have done a lot more, expanded on a lot more things that we were left questions with by the end if it was a show. And just in my eyes, it would have worked better as a show. It worked as a movie, but could have been better as a show. And the payoff by everything just feels a bit random and out of nowhere. The entire movie, the main thing that you're on suspense for and what the mystery is what happened to these kids. We get that answer, but it could have been better. It's not exactly what I was wanting. It makes perfect sense of what they were doing, but it feels nowhere and kind of random in my eyes. And just the entire thing the movie was setting up, that's not exactly the payoff that I would have wanted. It eventually did work for me though, but if you're having this whole mystery building around what the answer is by the end, and then your answer is not satisfying enough at first glance, then it's kind of like, okay, that kind of drastically brought that down for me. It eventually worked for me, but at first I was very confused on what was happening. And the movie feels a bit slow due to the structure of the story. It's meant to be a slow burn, but since it's a mystery, since you're on suspense the entire time, it can be slow here and there because you're switching from perspective. It's meant to be a slow burn, but they could have made it faster paced here and there. And the cops are dumb in this movie. The movie takes place 3 months after the kids actually went missing, and it feels like the detectives did nothing because the entire movie plays it off as we question everybody, we don't know what happened. Well, obviously, there was still a lot you could do still. Even after 3 months later, it feels like you only really did the first week's job of detective work. You didn't really do the rest of it and just called it quits there. Kind of what happens when you're watching a horror movie like this. Characters have to be done like that just for that suspense to be in there. But it's worth noting something like that's there, so you have to turn off your mind a bit and not question it. But overall, Weapons is exactly what I wanted. If you love what the trailer showed, you want to see the answer resolved, this movie will deliver on that and keep you on suspense the entire time with a few good jump scares in there, and you're second guessing the mystery the entire time. Now I can say, some may be thrown off by the payoff and what the answer is by the end, and it is a bit of a slow burn, but if you like the trailers, this is worth checking out. But anyways, if you like this video, maybe leave those on the side of YouTube, subscribe, see you guys next time. Goodbye.